Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at another market structure, this time monopolistic competition. And our goal here is to be able to identify how price and quantity are determined in monopolistic competition. We're going to look at the similarities and differences that monopolistic competition has with both monopoly and perfect competition. And we're going to describe how monopolistic competition also leads to inefficiencies. So monopolistic competition is sort of a mix, a marrying of both monopoly and perfect competition, as the name might imply. It is a market structure where there are many, many firms, so no one firm can control the market, just like in perfect competition. But these firms are selling differentiated products like a monopolist will. There is free entry and exit in this market structure, just like in perfect competition, and it lacks what's known as collusion. The firms cannot work together. There are so many firms that no one firm can control the market, and the firms cannot work together to operate as a monopoly. So an example of monopolistic competition would be in the restaurant industry. Restaurants are monopolistically competitive. Certainly when it comes to the market for hamburgers. You can go to 1 million different restaurants in America and you can get a hamburger in pretty much every single one of them. Whether it's a local diner or whether it's a national brand chain, there's lots of places to get hamburgers. All right, but you can only get a Big Mac at McDonald's. No other firm sells Big Macs other than McDonald's. So there's lots of competition, but within that competition, there are monopolies for the specific product. If you want a Whopper, you go to Burger King. If you want a square patty, you go to Wendy's. Right? If you want the Big Mac, you go to McDonald's. They're all hamburgers. There's still competition, but each of those products is unique. Whether in real or perceived difference, they are unique. And as a result, they are being sold by a monopolist. It's just that monopolist doesn't have the same kind of freedom necessarily that the traditional monopolist might have. So how do we graph it? Well, the good news is this. The rules all apply for monopoly. They transfer to monopolistic competition. There is literally nothing new here in terms of the graph for you as a student. The rules still apply. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost is the optimal output. We find the quantity associated with marginal revenue equals marginal cost. We draw a vertical line straight up. We see where it hits the ATC curve and the demand curve, and that tells us whether there's a profit or a loss. If price is greater than ATC, we have a positive profit. If price is less than ATC, we have a loss. So everything's the same. Finding deadweight loss is the same as monopoly. It's exactly the same. It's really in the adjustment to the long run that we see things are different. So if we're drawing a profitable firm in monopolistic competition, it'd be like the one on the left. MC equals MR. We find the profit maximizing Q. We do the vertical line straight up. We see where it hits ATC and demand. We see that it hits demand above ATC. So there's our profit per unit times the number of units. So we have a profit, just like monopoly. And if there was a loss, again, we do MC equals MR. We find the Q. We go vertical line up till we hit both demand and ATC. We see that we hit ATC above price. So this area here is loss. It's just the same as everything else we've done. Deadweight loss is the same. An arrow pointing from where we are to the allocative efficient point where MC and demand intersect, because MC is our supply curve. So there's our deadweight loss, just like we would have expected. Same thing here. We still have deadweight loss, just as expected. There it is. So everything's the same in the short run. Nothing is different. It's the moving to the long run that is a little bit of a challenge. So let's pretend that there are 3 places in the town of Vienna that you can get a hamburger. Elevation Burger, Foster's, and McDonald's. Those are the 3 places. Now, each one of them has a unique product, but they're all basically the same thing. They're hamburgers. And now we're going to pretend that a new firm has entered in. We'll pretend that Five Guys is opening a new location in the town of Vienna. And so now the question is, what will happen to the demand for any one of these other hamburger options? Really, what we're saying here is in the short run, there's a profit. And if another firm says, I'd like in on this profit. And so that's Five Guys. They're coming in and entering into the market seeking profit. So what's going to happen to the demand for any one of these other burger options? And The reality is that when Five Guys enters, when a new option enters, there are some people that are eating hamburgers at one of the three previous firms only because it's the best fit for them currently. But Five Guys is a better fit for some people who are consuming at Foster's or McDonald's. And so they will choose to consume more hamburgers at Five Guys than they were at McDonald's. Right? They're going to stop buying McDonald's burgers and start buying Five Guys. That means then that the demand curve for existing firms in the long run will shift to the left. There will be less demand for their product because there's a more suitable alternative for some customers. So the demand and marginal revenue curves will shift left. Entry of firms leads to a demand decrease for existing firms. And as it shifts to the left, it's going to cause their profits to drop. Their prices are going to come down. Their profit is going to shrink. And firms will continue to enter in, not just Five Guys, but other hamburger places will continue to enter into the market until profit is competed all the way down to zero. That is, economic profit will be brought all the way down to the point where we have normal profit. Firms cannot do any better in this industry than their next best alternative, and they're not doing worse in this industry than their next best alternative. So in the long run, what you'll find is a point where we have no economic profit. The demand will have shifted to the left to the point where at MC equals MR, our profit maximizing quantity, at that point, we will have a price equal to average total cost. So the average total cost curve will be tangent to the demand curve at the profit maximizing quantity. If the industry had been experiencing a loss, we would have seen the opposite. If there was a loss, then firms in the long run would begin to leave the industry. As they leave, their customers still want their product. People still want to eat hamburgers. It's just that they have fewer choices now from which to choose. So they were going to Five Guys in the instance of a loss. Five Guys leaves, and so they were eating hamburgers at Five Guys. They're not going to be able to eat them at Five Guys anymore. They still want hamburgers, so they're going to shift their demand to another one of the existing or remaining firms, causing the demand for those existing firms to shift to the right, which would cause the price to rise and eliminate the loss. Again, leading to a point where we keep exiting until price and average total cost are the same so that profit is zero. And then there's no more entry or exit. Having the long run quantity and price correspond to a point of tangency with the ATC curve does create something known as excess capacity. Firms could produce more of their product and lower their average total costs, but they choose not to because it's not profitable for them. So what we will find is that firms in monopolistic competition and firms in monopoly will produce along the economies of scale portion of the ATC curve. And that is because they have the ability to produce more and they could get bigger, and that would lower their average total costs. But it doesn't make sense economically because they'd be losing money. And so this excess capacity is a thing that does exist, and it's a certain degree of inefficiency in its own right. So comparing monopolistic competition to both perfect competition and monopoly. So just like in perfect competition, in the long run, monopolistic competition will have an outcome where price equals ATC. It will have a situation where profit is zero. The optimal output will still be determined using MC equals MR. There will still be many firms in the market. And the reason that profit is zero is because that free entry and exit allowed firms to either come in seeking positive profit or leaving if there was negative profit. But just like monopoly, the optimal output is found with MC equals MR. But firms in monopolistic competition are able to set a price greater than marginal cost because they are a monopolist for that specific product they're selling. And they will still have a downward sloping demand curve. And they will still have excess capacity. There will also be deadweight loss in monopolistic competition, just like there will be in monopoly. Graphically, in the long run, perfect competition would be right here with the demand curve horizontal at a place where MC equals MR equal to the minimum of ATC. In long run monopolistic competition, we've got a price found by MC equals MR, but that price is above MC. That price corresponds to average total cost, so there will be zero economic profit, but we'll still have some deadweight loss here like we do in monopoly. So in the long run, is monopolistically competitive industry good or bad? Well, on the one side, inefficiency exists. We do have deadweight loss created. There are beneficial trades that don't occur. That's negative. On the positive side, we do have a variety. Customers are given the option of choosing products that best fit their interests and their needs. Far more variety than you get in perfect competition. So there is a certain level of convenience that also exists. So yes, there are inefficiencies. Yes, goods are duplicated. There's lots of variety. There's millions of different hamburgers out there. So in some respects, it's a waste or it's inefficient. But on the other hand, it gives consumers the opportunity to pick whatever product is they best fit for them. So it's sort of a mix of good and bad, just as it's a mix of perfect competition and monopoly. Next time we'll begin looking at another market structure known as oligopoly, and I will talk to you then.